There are almost 200 million people in the United States. And the other day, one of them asked, "Who is Lee Hazlewood?" Well, there wasn't no one else around, and since I am Lee Hazlewood, I said, "There ain't no one else around, and since I am Lee Hazlewood, I'll answer that, friend." Well, sir, he reared back and gave me a daddy bear punch that caused my left eye to smart for the better part of a month. Now, this proved two things. One, he wasn't necessarily a friend, and two, he really didn't care who Lee Hazlewood was, no way. But just in case there might be another one around somewhere, the people at Mercury Records asked me to tell you this. Lee Hazlewood was born in Manford, Oklahoma, July 9th, 1929. Now, if you should have a map of Oklahoma on you and you can't find Manford, there ain't no use you bothering your eye doctor. Your eyes are all right. It's just that a town with only 365 living souls in it ain't likely to show off on any map. You believe me, there is a place named Manford, Oklahoma, all right, because I was born there at the beginning of the Depression. Not the one over money. I never did hear too much about that Depression. Fact is, I never did hear too much about money. The depression I was talking about was my daddy's. He's still pretty depressed over the whole thing. Now, the first 2 or 3 years of my life speeded or spudded or something by, and I can't remember too much, except I was always a little shy about having people get too close to me, because I was a heavy milk drinker in those days, and I just knew I had a breath on me like a young calf. Now, when I was 6 years old, my mother gave birth to a little girl they called Sarah, and she later turned out to be my one and only sister. I didn't care too much for her at the time, because she had shifty eyes, and I knew even then that you shouldn't put too much trust in people with shifty eyes. In fact, I left home a day or two after she was born, but when I came back that same night, my folks still had her, so I decided what the heck, or some other word, I wasn't going to give up a good thing just because of a small, shifty-eyed baby named Sarah. So, I spent the next 6 years of my life helping my folks feed her milk and telling all my friends to notice how her breath smelled like a young calf. Now, when I was 12 years old, my mama and daddy and me and a calf-breathed little girl named Sarah moved to McLean, Texas. We lived there for a few months while I went to school in the 6th grade, and it wasn't too much. Of course, the 6th grade in McLean, Texas never is. Next, we moved to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and stayed there for 3 months. And it was in Fort Smith that my sister Sarah and I answered to the names of Spotty and Old Blue. Now, the landlady didn't like children, but she didn't mind pets, so my folks let her hair grow and convinced the landlady that we were hunting dogs. It was sad for us, though, because along about this time, my sister's voice changed. We always thought that it was all that barking that did it. Just about the time we moved to Paris, the war started. Not the one between us and them people overseas, the one between my mom and my daddy. In fact, it's still going on today. And to make another thing a little more clear for you, that Paris I was telling you about is in Arkansas. And I can tell by the funny looks on your face, you probably thought I meant Paris, Texas. When I was 14 years old, the Hazlewoods, Mama, Daddy, Sarah, and Lee moved to Port Neches, Texas, another not-so-large town sitting somewhere in between Houston and the Gulf of Mexico. And it was in Port Neches, Texas, that Lee Hazlewood found out he liked girls, which would have been all right except for one thing. The girls didn't care too much for Lee Hazlewood. It didn't seem hardly fair, since my only fault was I was ugly. Not just kind of ugly, but, you know, ugly. And being ugly, though, don't keep you out of high school, so my daddy made me go. Now, in my last year of high school, I met a girl that didn't mind my being ugly too much, 'cause we only went out at night when there wasn't no Lon Chaney moon. Now, this girl's name was Naomi Shackleford. Now, Shackelford is an English name, but if you met Naomi and her folks, you could tell right off that it's been many a year since this group of Shacklefords have seen the white cliffs of Dover. And Naomi's daddy, Forrest, didn't just jump up and down and run over with joy when he found out his daughter and I were going together. In fact, he threw big rocks and sticks and dirt and Naomi's little brother Leroy at me every chance he got. And something else. He was a pretty happy man when he found out we were going to different colleges. Naomi went off to Sam Houston State College in Huntsville, and I went off to the Army.